Man, good times, good times. Welcome everyone to another edition of Nerdside Champs. I am Dan and that is Tim. We are the Nerd Champs and we come here every Thursday or a lot of Thursdays. We took quite a few Thursdays off to
Some
talk
of you
about
might
things.
be confused. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's okay.
yeah. But today, there's not a whole lot going on into the nerd universe this week, unless you're big into How to Train Your Dragon. And you were just a little too old or not old enough. I don't know. It's not in my wheelhouse, or I don't think Tim's either. So next week is big going on in our little corner of nerddom because Marvel Studios and Disney Plus will be launching the hotly anticipated show Ironheart. So
Oh
we
man,
decided to do some
I
pregame.
cannot wait to hear what the comments are going to be on this particular topic, Dan. Like I already know where the comments are going to be. It's
Yeah.
great. You know what I mean? You and I embrace it. We embrace the fact that we have
Yeah.
been consistent about everything in Marvel being terrible. So it'll be hilarious to hear people try to say that there are certain reasons
Yeah.
that you and I don't like this project. And you know, and no, I'm not looking forward to this project. I highly doubt anything about this project is going to be redeemable for me. It's going to be awful. That's all I mean, it's going to be terrible. There
I
is
will
nothing I'm going to take from this that's going to be like, oh, well, at least they did blank. I'm not going to take anything from this.
full disclosure to anybody out there. I did just today watch about 50% of Wakanda Forever, which is the entirety of Wakanda Forever that I have ever seen and probably will. No, I might force myself to finish it. I watched it in preparation for this and our further coverage, and we'll go into that a little bit later of Ironheart, which will start at some point next week. And yeah, I suffered through it, and I sat through that. God, what a garbage fire! Uh, but we do have comments in the queue. I can't believe anybody wanted to run up on any of the crazy, just gobbledygook nonsense of that movie. Uh, are you guys really this cynical? You won't even give it a chance. No,
Hold on, Dan. Dan, let's just answer this in unison, right? One, two, three. Yes,
no.
we
Yeah,
are the
yes, we are.
cynical,
We are
and
that.
no, we will not give it a chance. Okay,
Yeah,
this is look. There are projects in Marvel that yes are off the beaten path a little bit. And yes, some of those projects have turned out to be relatively successful. Our good friend Jonathan, anytime there is a fringe project, he brings up Guardians every single time. Okay. Well, what about Guardians? Guardians wasn't this. Guardians wasn't popular. Guardians was a completely and totally different thing. All right. Number one, it was directed by James Gunn. Number two, it had an all-star cast. It had very well-known cast: Dave Bautista, Chris Pratt, Bradley Cooper, Vin Diesel, a lot of big names in the billing. Okay. The other thing is it was surrounded by A-list content. You had Iron Man, Thor, the Avengers, all these things surrounding it that were going to make it successful, that was going to carry it one way or the other. It was in a cosmic storyline, and it happened to be successful because it was something different. It was a different genre than a lot of the other stuff in the MCU. People liked that. They liked the fact that it was more comedic. So yes, Guardians was the outlier, but we cannot sit here and cling to everything being the next Guardians. If you're going to do that, you need to build it up the same way. You need to have A-list content around it. You need to have a huge billing cast, and you need to do everything you can to make sure that it flows within a very fluid and interesting story. None of that is happening here. I completely and totally expect this series to crash and burn because of that. So
yeah.
that's just my take.
Guardians didn't need to be a Marvel project to reach the success that it did. I mean, maybe the level that it did, But Guardians could have survived a elevator pitch if it was not Marvel at all. I mean, it was basically Star Wars mixed with the fifth element. You throw in a cool nostalgic soundtrack and make it even more irreverent than something like the fifth element was, and it's a fun sci-fi outer space adventure. It You know what I'm saying? These shows, all they have to sell themselves are it's a Marvel thing. And it's like, but it's not one of the popular Marvel things. So what? It's a Marvel thing.
The comic book, man. I can't
Yeah.
tell you how many times I've heard that. No, read a comic book. I got in a Twitter fight the other day, and it was just the most ridiculous thing that I've ever gotten a Twitter fight about. It was about this show and how everybody that hates this show is obviously hating it for one of two reasons. And I said, no, that's not correct. There are a lot of reasons that aren't those reasons that I hate this show for. And I categorize them, and it just, I mean, people just don't want to have the real discussion about why these things fail. And that's why, and Disney knows this. That's why Disney puts that armor up before it even starts. And they did the same thing with the Acolyte. They did the same thing with all this other stuff. They put the armor out there before it even starts because they know there's going to be staunch defenders of the show just because of those reasons. And that is a shame. Okay. The quality is all that matters here. And right now, the quality is just, it's not going to be there. There is absolutely nothing in the history of Disney Plus shows, the history of this character, the history of the story they're introducing, the history of the cast. There is nothing that tells me that this is possibly going to be a good show.
Yeah.
Ever.
I've been reading, I'll tell you some comic books I've read. I've read Sleepwalker #1. I've read Darkhawk. I've read NFL Pro. That was a short-lived Marvel run NFL tie-in.
They Quarterback Club. I think the Quarterback Club was one too, and I had that. So that was
None of them deserve movies or shows on Disney Plus. I'll tell you that right now. I know the Sleepwalker fans are going to come for us now, Tim. The 6 dudes that really love that character. But let's go on down. I am so not looking forward to this one. Just a typical hyper competent legacy character. No thanks. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a hat on a hat.
It's really funny that you watched Wakanda Forever today, Dan. So let's talk about Shuri, for example. Okay. Oh, Shuri made Bruce Banner look like an idiot in 30 seconds in Infinity War. Like in 30 seconds, she was just like, oh, well, you didn't do this because you're a moron. And he's like, oh, yeah, you're right. We all are morons. I'm sorry. So Shuri is like the most hyper competent person on the planet. Right. Mm-hmm. And then we run into a problem that she can't fix. And it's just like, oh, well, there's some other girl that might be able to fix it. Here she is. Right. So they had to dial up the hyper competence already on top of how hyper competent Shuri was. They had to like magnify it by like 1,000. And that's how hyper competent Riri Williams is. It's just ridiculous. I cannot stand how they have to just dial it. They went to 11. They got to go to 12. They went to 12. They got to go to 13. They can't just let things be, okay, she's a smart girl. They can't just let her be a smart girl. She's got to be the smart girl, the smartest girl ever to smart girl. It's ridiculous.
Well, because Shuri in the first Black Panther was a teenager, I think. Their ages aren't stated, but she's like this teenage girl. Of course, she's smarter than everyone, and they don't know how to, or at least they forgot how. In the Avengers, you had Tony and Bruce together collaborating on things, and one didn't have to be dumb for the other one to be smart.
Exactly, Dan. Exactly.
They were
absolutely.
They were able to pitch things back and forth and figure out how Loki's scepter worked, and neither one, they had different areas of expertise, and they were working. But now, from Black Panther on, the way you establish that somebody is smart is the other person that we thought was smart is just an idiot compared to this person. And that was, Shuri walked in, and Tony and Bruce are idiots. And then now Riri walks in and Shuri's a moron. And it's like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Really? Is this the only way you know how to do this?
And here's the thing. So Reed is going to be introduced in the MCU in about a month's time here, right? So Reed is going to be introduced. Will he be smarter than Riri Williams? That's going to be the question. Okay. Are they going to flirt with that line, Dan? Are they going to flirt with that line? I would like to throw the suggestion out there that they're not. I would like to throw the suggestion out there. They are not going to make Reed smarter than Riri Williams. And there will be something in that movie, perhaps, maybe in a post-credit, that clearly defines that they are like maybe equal players in the intelligence game. I'm going to make a prediction.
Reed will not only not be smarter than Riri, he will not be smarter than Shuri either, because it is still owned by Disney. and once you've established that the two smartest people in the universe are, smart person 1 and 1A are these two black girls, you got a Kamala situation, Tim. They're not replacing these girls as
there is absolutely no way they're going to say Pedro is going to be smarter than both of them. There's no way.
Absolutely not. They're stuck there. They're painted themselves into that corner and they're staying there.
They are.
Is Riri technically a legacy version of Stark, though?
Yeah, I mean, because here's the thing. So I'm not super hip on all the Iron Man legacy stuff in the comics. I know that I think War Machine takes over a little bit, right? And I think that Rescue, which is Potts, right? I mean, Pepper. She turns into Rescue, which is kind of like a female Iron Man, right?
Yeah.
So those are, and then now Morgan Stark. Does Morgan Stark take on a mantle? I forget. I don't know. I have no idea.
In the family doesn't need to get superpowers.
But I think it's very clear by the public statements. Robert Downey Jr. is treating this as if it's like a torch passing from Tony to Riri, and all the headlines out there are comparing it. So for the purposes of the MCU, I think they're treating this as a legacy torch passing. And so yeah, I mean, I don't know if she's an official legacy version, but I think she's going to be the MCU's legacy version of Iron Man.
Because nothing says the future face of the MCU like a delayed, pushed, buried Disney Plus show. That is definitely the next Iron Man, who was the core central figure of your most popular and important storyline. You're going to replace it with somebody that can't get a successful show. That makes all kinds of sense. There's obviously, even though she's the smartest person that ever had brain cells, I did watch enough of Wakanda for whatever that she was working with stolen Stark Tech blueprints because Shuri recognized them. Now, why she would need to crib any notes from
Tony Stark. I know.
Tony Stark. I mean, you know what I'm saying? And the functional retard that Tony Stark was, why she would need to know anything that he ever did to make her own super suit. I don't know. Like, maybe she was sick that day. She had a head cold.
I don't know, man.
The fact they mentioned Stark Tech and she wears an armored suit, that kind of makes her like Iron Man, but she has no direct connection or correlation. We were supposed to get Iron Wars. We were supposed to get War Machine. That would have been a more natural progression.
But then they just completely and totally destroyed the character in Secret Invasion, so nobody wants that now.
Yeah.
And then you've got Rhodey's just completely, I mean, so this is the main problem with Disney is they can't line their stories up. And because they can't line their stories up, that's why nobody's looking forward to them. They can't get anything for Secret Invasion except make sure that Samuel L. Jackson is on the on the spaceship at the very end. That's it. That's all you got to do. And that kind of stuff is really going to come back to haunt them. The fact that the connectivity just was never there, and the fact that people are going to, try to actually make this into a big piece of the MCU. I mean, I look, you and I don't care that much about this, Dan, but the fact of the matter is there's a lot of people that went to see Wakanda Forever specifically because, there's a big push. There was a big push to try to get people in the seats for this movie for political reasons. And I think that there's a lot of that's going on with this movie as well. And with this show, I mean, as well.
Yeah.
I think that there's a big push to get people to watch it. It is June, we just had, today is Juneteenth, of course. There's all kinds. So there's going to be a big push to get people to watch this show. And I just honestly, it's just not a show that I'm interested in. I think I went to see Wakanda Forever. I just did not care for the movie for a lot of reasons that don't have to do with race at all. I just didn't care for Namor, who's one of the greatest characters in the comics. They really nerfed him. They did not do a great job. The CGI on Riri's suit, you didn't even make it this far, Dan, but at the very end, she gets this suit that looks like it's from PlayStation 2. It's terrible. And then there's just there's a whole bunch of other stuff that just never really lined up, never really made sense. We could get into the weeds and the details of that, but as it relates to this show coming up, I just don't know that's why nobody's really going to have an interest. Wakanda Forever did not land like they thought it was going to land. And because of that, people are just kind of indifferent to this show. And I think the big thing they're dangling out there right now is Mephisto. That's it. Like Mephisto is going to be like introduced by episode 4. They've told us that. They've come right out and said it in the press release that he's going to be introduced by like episode 4 so that people will watch the show. That's what they're doing. I mean, it would just be like if they told you, hey, Magneto is going to show up in episode 3. You're at least going to watch through episode 3, right? I mean, this is just that's what they're doing. They're baiting people in to try to watch this show, and I'm not buying it. I don't think a lot of other people are going to buy it either.
Here's what Marvel is doing now. They're digging around in the junk drawer for heroes to make projects, but they're scraping the bottom of that barrel, finding people they haven't used yet, and just throwing in crap that came out in the last few years that nobody read and doesn't have a following, no built-in audience or fan base, and they're throwing it against the wall and trying to act like this was always a popular property that people are going to be excited to see. And some of it is decent, passable, and some of it is awful. And you get stuff like Shang-Chi, which was passable, but nobody read the Legends of Kung Fu and Shang-Chi. That's not a comic that's on anybody's top 10 list. Nobody cares about that property. And you get things like Wonder Man's coming out. And I mean, there's people that are like, deep comic nerds who really like Wonder Man, but that's nothing. That's a nothing property. But while they're digging in the junk drawer and, Black Panther's passed, so what we're going to do, we're going to make a movie about his sister. We're going to market it in such a way that nobody even really knows for sure what we're doing. So you buy a ticket hoping you might see Black Panther. And, we're going to make this stupid movie about Ironheart that came out 3 or 4 years ago that nobody read that comic. And what they're doing with these is, we do have a few classic marquee names left of anti-heroes, villains, things we haven't used. You know what? Let's throw these marquee names that we haven't tarnished and throw them in a blender with all this crap and ruin it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They did that with Namor and Wakanda Forever. Namor is totally torched. That is not Namor from the comics. It bears almost no resemblance. I mean, I guess the trunks and the wings on his feet is where it ends.
You do that with somebody like Taskmaster. And yeah, there were some people that were like, that kind of stinks. Taskmaster's kind of a cool character, but nobody really is hardcore Taskmaster. There are people where Namor is their favorite Marvel character. Like there are several people that Marvel starts and ends with Namor, and you totally screwed him up there. You know what I mean? Like that wasn't even like a B or C tier. That's like, I really hope that there's some kind of alternate universe explanation for why this is not Namor in the MCU. That's what everybody thought when they left the theater. And so it's a shame that that's what they feel like they have to do now. And look, I'm a huge fan of Wonder Man. I love Wonder Man. Okay. I really hope that they don't screw up Wonder Man. The fact that he's being introduced on Disney Plus gives me a lot of pause. A lot of pause.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But but Namor, add Mephisto to the list of major characters that you're just gonna just throw in a blender and screw up, because it's such a mismatch. Why would Mephisto is Marvel's version of Satan. He is Satan because they couldn't name a character. He is Satan. They just couldn't call a comic book character Satan, so they named him Mephisto. And you're going to have the power level of Satan, the Prince of Darkness. And who's he going to go against? Thor, Doctor Strange,
Ghost Rider is who he's supposed to go against.
Yeah.
But no. Ghost Rider would be way too cool for the MCU. We're going to introduce Ironheart.
Yeah, I mean, this is a technology. It doesn't even, if it was Iron Man, it wouldn't work. I mean, it's not, your genres aren't crossing right. This is not, she shouldn't be fighting Satan. She shouldn't be fighting metaphysical demons. She's a technological wizard. She should be, I mean, is she going to learn magic in this series? I mean, is that what's going to happen?
And the fact that Mephisto is actually going to be introduced is actually, I think, bad, because we're going to tie back to Agatha, Dan. We're going to tie back to Agatha because Death is Mephisto's daughter. Is that correct? Something like that. There's a connection there, right? And so we know that there's a connection there, and so it's going to be very interesting to see how they tie all of this together. And I for one just have no hope in it. I just feel like there's nothing there. There's nothing there that is pulling me in. Even the Mephisto stuff is just not enough to make me say I got it. Yeah, I would much prefer that they didn't tell me about Mephisto and I just found out when I got there. You know what I mean? But anyway.
Yeah, the fact that they're telling that just lets me know it's going to be awful. Like, how do you even make that connection? How do you draw that together? It doesn't. You're gonna. I don't know. Thug Dog. I'm not as down on her as you guys. I don't mind her character in Black Panther 2. I just think Disney Plus finds ways to ruin everything.
I mean, Dan and I have made our opinions known. I think we definitely could have done without her in the MCU in general. I just feel like there was no place. That the entire story of Black Panther 2 did not need her. I think that's probably the biggest thing. When you completely remove a character from the storyline, and you could have put any generic character in its place and it would have worked. I just don't understand why that's important. So it just feels like she's shoehorned in there. It does not feel like it's anything that's going to be embraced. And I just expect this to fail miserably. So there you go.
Yeah, she's shoehorned into Black Panther the same way Mephisto is shoehorned into her show. And, it's all just a cavalcade of nonsense. Disney Plus has been an awful experiment for Marvel Studios. Even when they make a good show, it wrecks what they have going on. It ruins the continuity. WandaVision was a good show. I enjoyed WandaVision. WandaVision made Multiverse of Madness a bad movie for me, because the Wanda that we got was not the Wanda that was at the end of that show. They were unrelated characters, and it was the first time the continuity of the universe was totally out of whack.
Well, and what
it-
what really made WandaVision go is the fact that they left so much mystery, right? We
yeah,
all thought Mephisto was behind that. Remember, there were
yeah,
there were Mephisto rumors for like the entire run. And when it turned out not to be, when it turned out to be Agatha at the very end, we were all very let down because Mephisto being introduced would have been really cool. But
yeah.
yeah, the mystery is what added to WandaVision. Did I romanticize it a little bit because it was kind of on the heels of COVID and a lot of that? Probably, but it was a good show. Okay. I have not really had a good entertaining show since. So anyway,
Yeah, like even the good, like I said, WandaVision was probably undeniably the best show they've produced, and it had bad ramifications. Even when they do their
yeah,
best things, ramifications going forward are bad. you know, and
yeah,
there were other shows that I thought were passable, uh, but they none of them were great. None of them put the story forward in a way that works. Josh the Homesteader has jumped in. The fact that they sat on it so long shows that they don't have any faith in Ironheart. Yeah, this show has been
not
done
at all.
for
Yeah,
what, over a year. It was like
yeah.
they
I
weren't
I honestly
reshooting
think
or
they were.
re-editing.
I
Oh, go ahead.
honestly think they were waiting on timing for a lot of things in order to line everything up. And so yeah, I'm they've been done shooting this for a long time, and yeah, I agree. Leaving it on the shelf, there's nothing like just leaving a project sitting there that makes it get better, right? So
Right.
I feel like it's just gonna crash and burn. I don't know how in the world this a project like this ever really got greenlit. That's kind of my biggest complaint and problem with it. I didn't even care for some of the other Disney Plus stuff that got greenlit. I wasn't a huge Hawkeye fan. I know a lot of people were. Wasn't a huge Hawkeye fan. Wasn't a huge fan of Ms. Marvel. Wasn't a huge fan of She-Hulk. So there's a lot of making up to do as far as I'm concerned with Disney Plus, and they haven't done it recently. Daredevil was kind of not what I expected. I expected a lot better project from Daredevil. So yeah, there's just a lot that they've got a lot of work to do, and I just don't know that they're going to be able to do it with a project like this. This feels very much to me just like Echo. The same level and expectations going in, and it's like it's not going to
Yeah.
take much for me to say, oh, this isn't as bad as I thought. But then it's eventually going to get to the point where it's like, oh, it's as bad as I thought. That's what happened with Echo. Like the first 3-4 episodes of Echo, I was like, okay, maybe I can kind of sort of. And then the finale came and I was just like, oh, never mind. That was terrible. So,
Well, I mean,
um, so that I think that's kind of the direction this is going to go. I might give it an episode or two where I'm like, so could have been a lot worse, but then I completely expect to have the rug pulled out from under me and completely hate it by the end. That's just the
yeah.
way I see it happening.
Well, the fact that it's been in the can for so long, and the tone that I've just suffered through for a little over an hour watching half of the Magnum Crapus that is Wakanda whatever, and lets me know that this is of a previous headspace that Marvel was in, that they're trying to claim they've turned a corner on, but I don't really think they have.
Yeah.
This show is going to carry the message and carry it hard. Wakanda whatever carried that message like a like a gong. They were banging on that thing like a dead
Oh
horse,
yeah.
man. Yeah, it just gets, it's like I went to a sermon or some kind of, uh class or something, like a professor was trying to teach me. That's part of how they ruined Namor. And I just know they've sat on it this long. This is before they even said maybe we need to change course on that, and it was done before any of that. And that's who this character is. This is going to be a message bearing show. That's what it's going to be all about. So I don't know. I have no hope. But anyway, let's bring up. I just think Disney will make an already French character a lot more unlikable. This is the pattern.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ms. Marvel, She-Hulk. I mean, it's every single Ms. Marvel, She-Hulk. Moon Knight. If it's a fringe character, by the end, you're just going to wonder, like, why did it take so long? Did we really need this show? That's kind of what we're
like Moon Knight. Moon Knight, it started off okay, and then it just got super weird, and it never got close to even being remotely tied into anything. You know, it has no connection. There's no connective tissue between that show and anything else anywhere in the Marvel universe. Oh man. I Am the Night. The smart black girl makes a couple of middle-aged white guys uncomfortable. Sounds about white. Yeah, screw you. I Am the Night.
we just sat here and we just we're able to chronicle several things that we think are going to be wrong with the show, and not once did we mention race. So, get over yourself. That has absolutely nothing to do with our critique. We are comic book fans. Dan, can you name several African American heroes that you absolutely love? I personally can, right?
Oh yeah.
And and Dan and I, we are absolutely not, the only thing that we are prejudiced against is bad entertainment. Okay, that's what we hate. We hate bad entertainment. So there is no way that this show will be good. I apologize for all of you who have been tricked into thinking that it will be. So you'll see.
Mary Sue.
You'll see.
A Mary Sue is a Mary Sue. Regardless of race or even gender. I know it's called a Mary Sue, but for those who don't know the trope lingo, a Mary Sue is a character that is just magically capable of doing any and everything the plot needs them to do. They are just like so awesomely capable for no reason. They haven't earned their capability. They just innately smarter and better at everything. And we're born that way. That's a Mary Sue, and often to a degree that is laughable and ridiculous. Like we were just we're going through the Jurassic Park movies and reviewing those. The kid on the island in Jurassic Park 3 is a white boy, but he's a Mary Sue. The fact he got left on the island full of dinosaurs and he turned into the Lost Boys and he's like dominating the dinosaurs in his camouflage gear, collecting Tyrannosaurus urine is ridiculous. That's and Riri Williams building an Iron Man suit in her garage is also ridiculous, at 19 years old. So yeah, I'm not down with it. That's not a fun character. Ray is a Mary Sue. That's why nobody likes her. Name. I can't read that. Wire moment. Okay, I can't read any of that name. You're trying to get me in trouble, man.
Wire reference. There we go.
Yeah.
We'll just say it was a Wire reference. Okay.
It was a reference to The Wire.
There we go.
Oh man, The Wire. I was watching the last season of Family Guy, and Lois is like, I never finished The Wire. I never started The Wire. Barry Island is slow. Preach, guys. Nobody asked for this. We are being told what to like instead of being shown what we want. That's the track they're on.
Yeah.
Name fans. We want more Iron Man. Marvel kills Iron Man, but here's an Ironheart. Bravo. Yes, golf clap.
Yep. Pretty much.
that
Pretty
totally
much,
fixes
right?
it.
I mean, it's like Marvel's just like, oh, let's take this great character that everybody loves, let's kill him, and then let's just replace him with a character nobody knows. Like, this isn't like Dick Grayson Batman, right? Dan and I always bring up Dick Grayson Batman as an example of why legacy characters don't work. This isn't Dick Grayson Batman. This is like introducing some random character to be Batman, just for no reason. And that's the problem that I think Dan and I have with it. That's the problem a lot of people have with it. This is not a character that anybody really cares about. Yes, we're well aware that Riri Williams is in the comics. Yes, we're, well aware that it's an actual character, but in the MCU, she was introduced so quickly. I don't care about her. Dan doesn't care about her. The 4 other people that saw that movie and liked it don't really even know or care about her. It's been years since that movie was introduced. How many people even remember that she's around? It's just not a good idea. So anyway.
And Josh Homesteader, he said, Mephisto should have been paired with Strange, Ghost Rider, maybe hinted at in a Blade movie, but Ironheart. It just doesn't make any sense. None at all.
It's never made sense.
If you're going to do a new Doctor Strange movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to pick Ironmonger as the villain in the Doctor Strange movie? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Is he going to square off against the Rhino? I don't think Doctor Strange is going to square off against the Rhino as the primary antagonist of his movie. It's your villain has to match the world and the power set of your hero. So the supernatural, really, that's where you're going. I mean, are we going to do what's the movie with
and what's really interesting, the biggest problem that Marvel has had recently, and this is probably part of the reason that I am going to hate this, Marvel has had a problem with making projects crowded with way too many villains. We saw this in Daredevil. That was a perfect example. We all saw the billing going into Daredevil, and the main villain that was talked about was Muse. That's the one that was on all the articles. It's the one that was introduced and talked about by everybody. And Muse was in, Daredevil for like 5 minutes. Okay.
Yeah.
So I feel like Marvel has these issues where they really want to try to cram in as many of their characters as possible, but it's coming at the expense of those characters because they're not doing them justice. They're just very, very briefly introducing them in a crowded storyline where they're really not going to get a lot of play. And so, I don't want Mephisto to be one of 4 or 5 villains, which is what I see happening here. There's probably going to be some kind of group villain. There's probably going to be some kind of mirror villain where there's some kind of like other, robot-esque type character. And there's probably going to be Mephisto. And I don't want Mephisto to be part of that storyline. I don't know about you, Dan, but that sounds absolutely abysmal. Just give me one villain. What they did with Spider-Man Homecoming was perfect. You know what I mean? Spider-Man Homecoming, you got Spider-Man, you got Vulture. You don't need to go into anything else. Right. You know what I mean? You don't need to go into anything else. Just pick one villain and stick to it. And I feel like, when you're talking about these coming of age young heroes, they're really trying to show how great they are by introducing them against all these different villains. I just don't think that's a good idea. I just don't think so.
The other thing is another trend that Marvel has. How does a girl in an iron suit that shoots lasers gonna fight Satan? She doesn't beat Satan. He can't be the primary antagonist because she can't beat him. And the Void or Sentry can't really be the primary antagonist in Thunderbolts because they can't beat him. And the Red Hulk can't be the primary antagonist in Brave New World because Sam can't beat the Red Hulk. I'm sorry, he can't do it. It's not possible. He didn't, even if he got the super soldier serum, which we've never been given a good reason why he doesn't, he still doesn't beat the Red Hulk. Steve couldn't beat the Red Hulk. He's a Hulk. He'll smash him into paste. You know what Steve would do? He would call the Green Hulk to fight the Red Hulk. That's what Steve would do. He was like, hey, Bruce, I have a problem. That's what he would do. I mean,
yeah. It makes no sense, man. They're really trying to sell these characters on their power and on their competence and on everything possible by dialing up the villains. And I just don't think that that's how it needs to land. I think a lot of these characters can sell themselves just as they are. As much as I did not care for the show at all, Ms. Marvel was right on par with somebody that was at her level as far as what she could do, right? And that's kind of what you need to do. Same thing with Spider-Man, same thing with a lot of these other heroes that are just kind of, new heroes, just got powers, learning how to use them kind of thing. That's the main issue with those, and when you got somebody like that, you're going to have to explain why Riri Williams building this in some, abandoned warehouse was able to learn how to fight against mystical creatures. That makes no sense. It makes no sense.
Like how? What does that have to do with anything? Like, I mean,
But that's probably one of the big things that I didn't like about the Marvels, right? By the time we see Kamala from Ms. Marvel to the Marvels, in the Marvels, she is going up against people that are clearly superior to her, and she is hanging with them, and it makes no sense. So there just needs to be kind of a I'm not saying that everything has to be hyper realistic, and that they just need to put people more on what their level is. I feel like that would really make the characters sing truer with the fan base. But I don't know. That's just my opinion on it.
everything has to hold to its own continuity. And I know drama is created when your hero is outmatched, but only when your hero is outmatched slightly. I mean, like it's always been explained, Sabretooth is actually bigger and stronger, a little bit more powerful than Wolverine.
Yeah.
Because if he wasn't, it wouldn't be all that exciting. I mean, that would be, if your hero is overpowering the villain, then it's not an exciting story. I get that. But it can't be to such a degree that your hero's only way out is like, hey, calm down, okay?
Yeah.
Maybe we could just talk this out. I mean, that you have to be able to, like, through force of will and ingenuity and creativity, defeat that villain. And unless we want to get spiritual in this show, she's not gonna beat Erzat's Satan.
There is one acceptable reason for them to introduce Mephisto. There's only one, and I don't think they're going to do it. And that's to introduce some kind of character that could actually fight against that kind of character, right? That would be to introduce a Ghost Rider or a Blade or a Midnight Suns type thing. There's all kinds of reasons why they could. I just know Disney, and I know that they're going to do none of that. They're going to do none of that because it would make sense.
Why would any of those characters be in your Ironheart show? That's
exactly.
Why
it makes no sense. And that would be the only acceptable reason to introduce Mephisto. But why would any of those characters be in Ironheart? There's just things that don't make sense.
But none of their shows carry out the stated purpose. Like, if you're going to make an Ironheart show, as much as we're not into Ironheart, the goal of your Ironheart show should be to reintroduce Ironheart and roll her out in a big way that people become invested in that character. That should be the point of a show called Ironheart. You know what I'm saying? It should not be to introduce the next cog in something and maybe Mephisto's here and all that kind of stuff. That should not be the point of that show.
Like I think Mephisto, because the rumors of Darth Plagueis throughout Acolyte were also a thing. And so I'm actually thinking that's what Disney Plus is going to do. I'm actually thinking it's going to be something that's going to be very briefly seen, very briefly mentioned, no hard references, maybe won't be the main antagonist, but kind of a thing on the side that we know people will watch through here because we told them that it's coming. And that's what I think is the only reason it's been mentioned is to boost viewership. That is it. It will have absolutely no bearing on the story. And if it does have a bearing on the story, it's going to be terrible. It's going to be terrible. There's just no other way around.
Well, none of these shows do, like Falcon and the Winter Soldier. You would think the point of that show would be to set up your new Sam Wilson to be a great Captain America and introduce him and roll him into that role. But they did that so poorly that they had to make a whole movie trying again, and they still haven't done it in a way that's captured anybody. You know what I'm saying? The show didn't said that done. Instead, they
Here's the thing, man.
wait.
If
Yeah,
Sam, if Sam getting handed the shield by and saying try it on, looks good on you, doesn't do it, then it's never going to work. Okay. No matter how many times you try to reintroduce him and try to put him in the forefront and try to prop it up with all your advertising and try to make sure that it's the thing that people are watching, there is absolutely no way that people are going to embrace it if they didn't embrace it right then and there when Steve handed him the shield. And nobody has ever embraced Sam as Captain America. That's going to be the main problem. That's going to be the main problem with that. And that's going to be the main problem with this. Okay. Nobody has embraced Riri as any kind of a legacy to Tony. I know that they are really trying to push that. RDJ put a tweet out essentially giving her his blessing this week. There's all kinds of stuff. They're really trying to tell people, hey, he's okay with her being the legacy. It's not going to work. People did not buy it then. They're not buying it now, and you need to just let it go. So anyway,
Bethesda going to be in the back room of the movie villain's house, like Darth Plagueis creeping around in the cave.
Exactly. That's exactly what I think is going to happen. That's
Yeah.
exactly what I think is going to happen. They're going to have him be some kind of side little thing, and ever to this day, the Acolyte fans that really like the show are like, oh, well, if they would have given us more Darth Plagueis. I'm like, no, I'm just so glad they didn't ruin that character by putting more of him in the show.
Yeah. Yeah, I still have to fix my headcanon for the fact that Yoda is at the end of it, like being a
Yeah.
So yeah, no, they again, they have this new crap that nobody likes or this obscure stuff that nobody likes, but like, you know what? We do have a couple things that are great and have a huge fan base. Let's pepper that in there and ruin it.
I mean, and that's what the other thing about this is there, sooner or later there's going to be hard references or cameos to previous projects. We saw that in Daredevil. We saw that with some other stuff. And so at what point is this going to get where where we say that they're really, really trying too hard? I don't know. We'll have to see where it goes. But yeah, I mean, I'm not looking forward to it. My expectations on a scale of 1 to 10 are like, they're right there at like a 0 to 1, right in there. I mean, I have very, very low expectations.
I can't imagine. There's no one waiting for this. She was a bit character. Now, I won't say she's the most annoying character because that's a movie, in the half of it that I watched, it was just nothing but annoying characters. I think Angela Bassett as the queen might be the only good character I saw in the section that I watched. So anyway, she's a big character in a 3-year-old movie that's damn near 3 hours long that I can't imagine is on anybody's rewatch list. Like Black Panther is a well-paced movie that moves quickly, has a lot of great action, and was a touchstone for a whole lot of people, a generation. That would be high on something that people would watch over and over again.
It's a great movie. I like that movie. It's a good movie.
Yeah. Having sit through half of Wakanda Forever, I don't want to sit through the second half, much less sit through that 3-hour monster all the way through again. Nobody.
Yeah.
So it's a 3-hour, 3-year-old movie that she is just a minor part of. Who remembers this girl? Who remembers it? It has not been referenced. No event or character from this movie has been referenced again in anything else. Namor hasn't been mentioned. The nation that lives in the sea has not been mentioned. Riri has not been mentioned. We haven't seen Shuri. We haven't seen her running around in a Black Panther suit. None of these characters have came up again in the last 3 years.
And to be fair, I don't think that this was their original release. I think they wanted to do it about a year and a half ago. They just didn't have the resources to get it done. And there was really, I think they were struggling how they would make it fit. And for whatever reason, they landed on right now. And that scares me to death because we all know where the MCU is right now. We just came off of a summer where Thunderbolts could arguably be the best of 3 MCU movies. Okay. The MCU is not in a good spot right now. And to introduce it right now does not feel like coincidental timing to me. It feels like this is kind of where they're just throwing everything that just needs to be thrown at this point. It's everything that's left over. We're throwing it in here and hope that one of them sticks.
The continuity is so broken. I mean,
yeah.
Honestly,
there is no continuity. There's no continuity.
3 years ago, they had a movie where they introduced the fact that there's an underwater kingdom, a hyper advanced underwater kingdom. I'm not going to call them Atlanteans because for some reason that doesn't work anymore. You can't have Atlanteans. You have to have Mayans or whatever. And that was 3 years ago. That movie comes out. The whole world finds out there's a hyper advanced civilization living underwater. It doesn't come up again, not one more time.
Nope.
Not in any of the shows, not any other movies. Like, wow, did you see that? There's people who live in the ocean. I think that would be like a big deal that people would talk about.
And Dan, did you get to the point where they introduced that those are the first mutants introduced in the MCU? Did you get to that point?
Yeah. Namor says, I am a mutant.
And then we find out there's mutated individuals in Ms. Marvel and all this other stuff. But once again, it just kind of sits there. This is what Marvel has done recently that just drives people insane. This isn't like what they did in the comic books. They think what they're doing is similar to what they did in the comic books, but in the comic books, there were so many different series and runs going on simultaneously that if you didn't like what was going on with one, you could just go and get an issue of the other and just pick it up and then just keep reading that instead. But they can't do that now. This is what's on. Okay. Yeah. Ironheart is the only thing out for weeks now. Okay. I can't just go pick up an issue of Wonder Man. I can't just go pick up an issue of, Thor. I can't do that. All right. This is what's on. So they think that having these simultaneous storylines is similar to the comic books. It's very frustrating for the viewer because there is no alternative. And that's the main issue that they're going to run into. Trying to make this like the comic books has given us way more frustrations than they possibly could have comprehended when they were putting it together.
Yeah, it just none of it tracks anymore. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make any sense. And Namor being a mutant, that is, he explains his whole origin in a sequence that is 6 times longer than it needs to be. I didn't need to see his mom's labor pains, for God's sake. The movie's it's almost 3 hours long, and you know exactly why. You're watching this like, why is this scene 10 minutes long? This could have been established in 30 seconds, man.
Well, everything was like
long,
that. You know what I mean? Everything was like that. It's like they can't just have the water people jump out in front of them. They have to have like 5 different waves of water people jump out in front of them and cut off different paths. It's like, it just everything in the movie just takes so much time. And Disney Plus does this too. This was our biggest complaint with Andor. Everything just drug. It did not feel like it needed to. It felt like they wanted it to take up more time. And that when you got a studio that's doing that's killing time in the film, that just lets you know that they don't really even believe in the story or the project. And that's the problem. I mean, the story is the most important thing here. All right. The great thing about comic books, the most awesome thing about comic books that I think we all love is that we had meaningful stories, every month, and they were in 15 minutes of reading. 15 minutes of reading would give us, in
Yeah.
our mind, in an hour of imagination.
Yeah.
And it was so succinct, the dialogue, the action, what takes place, all of that stuff. It was very, very very
It's dynamic. It's quick.
it's dynamic. It's just so expertly done. And Stan, for all his credit, did a great job of keeping the reader engaged with a lot of his stories like that. And a lot of the other people have done really well with it as well over time. But they're not nailing that. Okay, being brief and succinct and very direct with your stories is something that the MCU got away from a long time ago. Ever since Endgame, it feels like they think that because Endgame was long, they need to make everything long. And I just don't think there's a reason for that. The Disney Plus shows are the worst example. They're the worst example.
Yeah. And Namor telling his story, and my mom drank the blue goo, so I have wing feet, and that makes me a mutant.
Yeah.
That's Ninja Turtle understanding of what a mutant is. That's not a Marvel mutant. Marvel mutants
and
aren't
that's the thing.
mutated, they're born that way.
The thing about the Marvel mutants that people forget is that the Marvel mutants have always been here. Okay. And it just starts to get to a point where Marvels get, a higher and higher caliber of power, and then the government starts talking about how something has to be done about it and all this kind of stuff. It's a little different. In the MCU, we've been introduced to enhanced individuals for a long time that are not mutants. All right. And we've already had the Sokovia Accords, which is very, very similar to the Mutant Act, right? I mean, it's very similar to the Mutant Act. So what is there left to do for the mutants now? You know what I mean? It really isn't going to make any sense. So there's just a lot that Marvel has. This is, for those of you who don't know, Dan and I are pro reboot. We've been pro reboot yesterday. Okay. We are pro reboot as soon as Marvel can do it. And when we say as soon as Marvel can do it, they can do it. Okay. It's time. It's time to do it. And we know that everyone says, just wait on Fantastic Four. Well, then when Fantastic Four comes out, it's going to be, okay, just wait on Secret Wars. Just wait on Doomsday. Just wait on all this stuff. I'm telling you guys, none of that matters to me. They just need to reboot it and get it over with. It's time.
I hate that they keep pouring new characters or untapped characters into this continuity, because this continuity is garbage, is ruined. I don't even want a version of an untapped character to be introduced here that I like. I mean, I feel like, what they should be doing is just going around and wrapping up loose ends and giving swan songs to all the people that are willing to still do it. So you get Benedict Cumberbatch in and you wrap up his Doctor Strange well, you give him a good send-off, you give Hemsworth another crack at Thor, you give him a good send-off, you make this next Spider-Man a conclusion of sorts, you start concluding the versions. They already gave Guardians a pretty good send-off. They wrapped that up well enough that I know they said you'll see Star-Lord again, but I don't need to see Star-Lord again.
I don't either,
And
and is there anybody who's really going to cry if we don't see Oscar Isaac as Moon Knight, or if we don't see Shang-Chi, or if we don't see, is there anybody who's really going to say, oh man, they were like my favorite? No, I don't think we're going to see that. How many Shang-Chi Halloween costumes did you see last year, Dan? How many? You know what I mean? How many?
How many little girls? How many little girls have you seen walking around as Shuri's Black Panther?
Yeah, or Riri Williams. How many?
Yeah. None. Not one. Not any.
It's like, come on, guys. I know that it would stink for some of these actors who just got here. And I think that's what really makes it difficult for them, is to say, it's particularly for some of these actors that have done a great job. Once again, not a huge fan of the character and not a huge fan of the show, but I think Iman Vellani, Ms. Marvel, The actress did a great job. You know, I mean, it would stink for her to know that there's nothing moving forward, but that's supply and demand, man. I mean, that's how it works. Okay. You came in at the tail end, stinks for you, but guess what, man? You know what I mean? You're a great actress. Go out there and find something else. Okay. And I just feel like that's where Disney is. They don't want to feel like they clearly have made commitments to some of these actors, and that's why things are continuing. They've made like 2 or 3 project commitments, and they need to just let that stuff die.
Well, the other thing, I mean, you know, when they roll out the cast to Doomsday, and you know, other people that want to see positivity and fart rainbows think this is good news, but they know that they have a broken continuity and they don't want to invest a bunch in it, because when they roll out the cast to Doomsday and they're doing all this multiverse stuff, and you're going to get all of the Fox X-Men cast in Doomsday, that just tells you that they know better than to cast and launch a whole new version of the X-Men into this garbage continuity. They know that they know that that's not worth doing. They know that's a waste of time. So they're just going to rehash. Yeah.
Let's just say they did it. Let's just say they did it, Dan. Let's just say that they introduced a version of the X-Men. Go ahead and pick somebody. I don't even know who, right? Pick some guy to be, you know, Taron Egerton. That's a guy that's been mentioned for Wolverine, right? Let's just say Taron Egerton got introduced as Wolverine in the MCU, and then boom, reboot like 2 years later. Is that really what you want? I mean, is that really what you want? And that's kind of, you know, I don't know, man. I'm really just not bullish on this. I think that the MCU is just a broken, terrible, awful, no good, very bad story that Kevin Feige owns everything of. So
we're getting Pedro et al. As this whole new version of the Fantastic Four into this continuity that doesn't work, and we can't be more than, you know, 3 or 4 years away from a reboot. It's a waste of time and energy. They should have just held on to the Fantastic Four. The Fantastic Four was the perfect launching point for a reboot. They were the first family of the actual comic continuity, so you could have started a whole new thing with them. But are they doing that? No, they're just spinning their wheels and wasting their time.
Yep.
So anyway, we're going to waste our time, and we're going to watch Ironheart, and we will be checking in with you guys. Whose channel and where is still a scheduling thing. We may be checking in from Bone Bridger's channel, friend of the show, with our Ironheart reviews and reactions. They may be right here. Some might be live. Some may be recorded. We're not 100% sure, but we do know starting next week, we're going to have a whole series of movie reviews, Slab Cinema, where the movie studios send us their cinematic products to be graded in slab. We're going to rate it. Our team of experts, myself, Tim, and Bone Bridger, are going to give the ratings on important categories, and we're going to come up with a grade for each film by the time we're done. And we're launching with Jurassic Park week, and in anticipation of the new Jurassic Park, Jurassic World, something and something another. What's the new one called?
Rebirth.
Yes. Rebirth. So we're going to have you all ready. You can check into our channel. They should start dropping this week. And it's a fun format, a cool concept. They're going to be quick hit videos, and we think you'll really like it. Do we have anything else we need to tell the people, Tim?
I don't think so, guys. But just stick with us, and we will let you know everything you need to know about Ironheart. And I appreciate you guys checking in.
Oh, hey, wait. The home center's got something for us. I'm getting tired of Pedro. He is but in too many IPs, though I loved him in the Nick Cage movie. I mean, I liked him I am getting tired of Pedro and everything too. And
yeah. Pedro feels like he feels like Marvel's reach because he doesn't fit the bill of Reed. He feels like Marvel's reach so that they could try to get viewers. That's all it feels like. So I agree with you, Josh, for sure.
Yeah, at least maybe we can feel like this isn't a waste, that it's a wasted Fantastic Four, because it might not be a good Fantastic Four. But this will be 3 strikes and they're probably out. We probably won't get another Fantastic Four. But
Yeah, for sure.
until next week, Tim, OH.
IO.
All right. Goodbye.